All right, welcome to Six Inch Football. I'm your host, Alex Strinkline, and today we got a very special guest. If you could introduce yourself.
I'm Ramsey Abushahla. I'm the editor of UrbanPitch.com. Street street soccer, futsal, just all type of soccer and urban culture website, and we're an online publication.
So, could you just tell us a little brief your story, your soccer story?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because I didn't really grow up playing. I played AYSO when I was like 6 and 7, but I shifted to baseball and played um, throughout college, and so that was kind of like my main focus. And obviously, I loved all sports, but soccer was just kind of at the periphery of the sports I would play and watch as well. Out of college, I wanted to find a job. Writing anywhere, especially for sports. So I was doing some freelance gigs here and there, and just trying to find any possible outlet that I could write for. And so I came across Urban Pitch, and I didn't really know much about soccer. I wasn't a huge fan, but what kind of drew me to it was the cultural side of the game, right? Because you don't really have that with a lot of other sports where, it's so intertwined with art, fashion, music, and all of that. It's just kind of like its own world outside of the confines of the stadium. So I started doing a couple of culture stories for the site, and then started following soccer more. Started paying attention to MLS and the European leagues, and I've slowly become more of a fan. And obviously now I'm watching. Probably not watching as much as I should be, but I'm watching whatever's going on, whether it's the the ongoing MLS's back tournament, then NWSL. I went to France for the Women's World Cup last summer with my girlfriend. I've just kind of it's not the traditional soccer background where you grow up idolizing these stars, especially in my childhood. There's um, a lot of whether it's Zidane, Thierry Henry, or any of those guys growing up that I wish I would have grown up watching, because it's kind of like the golden age, right? Even with Ronaldinho and R9 Ronaldo. But now I'm just trying to do my homework and pretend to be as knowledgeable as possible when I'm talking to people and doing stories and stuff. So it's kind of like an ongoing evolution in terms of my soccer knowledge and fandom.
So before we get on to the questions, you want to plug your Instagram, your social media, or whatever?
Yeah, yeah. So you can follow Urban Pitch, urban.pitch on Instagram, and urban_pitch on Twitter. We post different stories, on the cultural side of the beautiful game. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we have a newsletter. And then my personal stuff, I'm the Abushahla on Instagram, and then Lebapino on Twitter.
All right, cool. And quick, I'm gonna have to do my plug. Me and my friend have a podcast called Bros and Sports Talks, Bros and Sports Talk, and we're doing better than your podcast, your little FaceTime podcast. We got good 100 views on our video, so.
Oh man, you're throwing shots already.
All right, it's all good
man.
though. But check it out. It's me and my friend. We're just talking about some sports. So
That's
I guess we're
hilarious.
gonna change the subject a little bit. We got, I guess, just a little bit of news, mostly Premier League news. William is supposed to go to Arsenal. He used to play for Chelsea. He's supposedly gonna sign a 3-year deal, and he can paid like a good 100,000 a week. So I think that if you do the math up to a year, it's like a good 10 million to like 16 million. But it's an interesting move. Williams kind of an older player, so.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people were kind of questioning that move on Twitter. I saw, especially with Arsenal kind of laying off a bunch of their staff members in the front office. But I mean, you got to realize um, I mean, people are trained to kind of blame the players, right? There's a whole culture of uh, our players overpaid and stuff, and you can get into all the arguments and stuff, but you got to realize, I mean, at the end of the day, like the owner himself is, I mean, a billionaire, and they're all about making their bottom line, and the business side of sports is kind of depressing, well, when you really get into it and stuff. But I just hope people can understand, that while regardless of if guys like Willian are being overpaid, it's important to not blame him for the layoffs of staff members, because I mean, if they really wanted to keep him, he probably would be able to do that with his net worth at, wherever. I think it's like 8 billion or something like that. I mean, that's just insane. But it is what it is. Whether you think the players are overpaid or not, we'll see how that move plays out for the Gunners.
So the French club, I don't really know how to pronounce them, but Lille, they signed Jonathan David, the Canadian Wunderkid, for 30 million. Which Jonathan David, they said he was going to go to United or Arsenal. So he's
I
also
think.
going.
Go
What?
ahead. Go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead.
he's also teamed up with Tim Weah, the American Wonder Kid. So
Yeah.
be an interesting partnership.
Yeah. I think it's Lille. Lille. I'm not 100% sure on that pronunciation. But yeah, it's always great to see young guys, and especially North America. We got a couple. I mean, whether it's Alfonso Davies or Tim Weah, or a couple of these other young guys who are getting transferred overseas to Europe. It's always exciting to see young guys getting their shot, and especially with the World Cup coming up out here in a couple of years. Obviously, we'd like to see the home sides go far with some young talent.
We're gonna move on to some city news. They're gonna sign Ake, the from Bournemouth, the big old guy from originally from Chelsea. I think another also for 30 million. Um, so I think that's all right deal. He's a decent center back.
Yeah, they're chasing Liverpool. And I think it's going to be a couple of years of a pretty heated rivalry between those two teams at the top of the Prem. But um, we'll see. I mean, both teams have loads of money, and they're willing to spend it. So the arms race is starting to heat up a little bit.
Well, and I also think this deal specifically, it's good because City just lost a decent young center back, Garcia to Barca,
Mm-hmm.
for a free agent deal. But so who do you support? Like as a team, you got
Yeah, so that's a good question. So part of my kind of I guess I said earlier that I don't watch as much as I should, and part of that is because I don't really align myself with a certain team. I like the way a lot of teams play, and then so for me, it's just been hard to kind of commit to a certain team, right? Because you have teams like I love watching Liverpool play. I mean, and who doesn't? Unless you're a fan of one of the rivals, but um, I mean, watching them is just incredible. But at the same time, I don't want to be lumped on as a bandwagoner or anything like that. Um, so there's that angle of who you love to play. I mean, City is always great to play. I mean, Pep has him. The way he strategizes and stuff like that is incredible. And then on the other side, you have like the historical side, and obviously there's a lot of teams with a lot of great history, with Manchester United and Arsenal being two of them that I've kind of been drawn to, with some of the not only the great players have taken the pitch in their jerseys, but the jerseys themselves. I mean, that's one thing that I've kind of fallen victim to over the last few years as I've been doing the urban pitch thing. Is I started collecting jerseys, and obviously Arsenal and Man U have some of the best, if you're talking 90s kits, with some of the Umbro and Adidas stuff that they had back in the day. So it's been hard for me to pick a Premier League team. Um, but I just need to jump in and do it. I think over the past couple of years, a lot of people have been trying to recruit me and stuff, but I think it's just, I think, a lack of commitment on my part that I just need to figure out.
So going on with the you picking a team. So ownership of teams is a big deal. You see it with
Yeah.
Bundesliga teams, with fan-owned teams. You see it with Premier League teams, with big Chinese investment companies buying them. What's your take on that? Do you like the corporatization of soccer?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like even with City, the I think it was a Qatari group that purchased them a few years back, and you've seen kind of the revitalization in the early 2010s and into now. So there's obviously a lot of pluses that go into the large amount of cash that comes with a new gigantic ownership group. But I think you take a look at what some of the smaller teams have been able to do with their fan owned clubs. Obviously, the whole Bundesliga is like that. I did a story a couple weeks ago on Pinzgau in Austria. There's a small third division side that's trying to get fans in the United States to buy some shares of the club. Detroit City FC out here stateside, which just went professional this year with Nisa. They just announced that they're being a fan-owned club. So I think in that sense, I think it's really, really awesome to see fans becoming involved in clubs taking stock into what the fans have to say, because as a fan of the game, you want to feel important, and you love rooting on for a team, but it seems pointless when it's owned by a gigantic conglomerate of millionaires and billionaires that don't really care about what you think or what you have to say. But I mean, so I mean, I get the positives of having those owners and what they bring to the game, but from like a purist fan, like romantic sports guy, the fan owned, I kind of find myself leaning to the ideals of having a fan owned club and giving that power to the fans themselves.
I'm gonna have to pause real. Okay, we're back. Quick, I guess hydration break, you could say. Um, on my take, I think that I want clubs to have an identity, whether it's with the city football group and all their teams. Like, I think that's a good identity. You can see it with smaller teams like Detroit FC, like what you're talking. But what I don't like is teams that don't have an identity. Like my team, the Colorado Rapids, they don't really have an identity. Or like even like Cincinnati FC, I don't really know their identity, but I've seen a lot of clubs in MLS have like good identities, like Atlanta United and LAFC. Their identity,
Mm-hmm.
it's a party club, like your
Yeah,
sport.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, LAFC, they did a really, really good job of listening to their fans, whether it was with the design of the badge or the way that they have the fan section set up in the stadium. So I think they did a really, really good job of kind of taking that whole identity and fan base into account when they were starting up the team. And they had a big advantage with being the new kids. They could observe and see what was going right, what was going wrong, and I think what you said. I mean, club identity is very important, and whether you do have a gigantic group behind it or it's fan centered, it's important to have as a club. And you think about, I mean, what PSG has done over the past couple of years with the whole off pitch fashion and culture that they've been able to dip their feet into, and that was a concerted effort from their ownership group, which is another multi-billion dollar group. So you can do it with, or it comes from oligarchs, you can do it. So, like you said, I mean, I think Cincinnati FC, they've got a great fan base. I think just them kind of getting called up and not having a great team has hurt them a little bit. But there are a lot of teams in MLS that are starting to kind of get it and appeal to the fans for better or for worse, whether it's jersey designs, fan incentive, whatever fan nights that they have at the stadium when they're allowed to have fans, being inclusive about supporters groups, all this stuff I think is great for, especially in America, where soccer is still kind of the little brother sport in terms of when compared to basketball, baseball, and football. But as the sport grows, I think just introducing people to the unique things that come with soccer that you don't see in any other sport, with supporters groups, with the chants that go on in the stadiums, with the pregame tailgates that go on before and after the game. I think that kind of stuff is what drew me in as someone kind of like on the outside who didn't wasn't a diehard, that didn't have a huge soccer background. So I think if it can draw me in, it can draw anyone in that loves sports. So that's when I kind of sell to people, to my friends who don't really get soccer or anything like that, and it's worked to a certain extent. So as the culture starts to establish itself and move forward, especially in the States, I think it's only good for U.S. soccer in the future. I mean, whether or not that's going to make our soccer teams better is another thing, but I think just establishing it itself as a sport in the States will make a difference regardless.
For sure. So I got a serious question. What goes into the process of writing your articles for Urban Pitch?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's pretty straightforward when it comes to writing. You have your story topic, right? Whatever it is, whether it's an interview or a list or anything like that, you have basically, you just got to set out what's most important first, right? What do I need to get across? How can I draw the attention of the reader, and all that? So whether that's getting in touch with your sources, or if it's an opinion piece, lining up what you feel like are the most important points that you want to get across first, and then just sitting down and organizing everything into a coherent story, and then rewriting it, and then rewriting it, and rewriting it again. Obviously the first time, your first draft isn't probably going to be readable. At least for me, it's hard to the hardest part for me, I think, is just realizing that, I can't get it right on the first try. So I think, just trying to get in touch with as many people as you can also is important. If we're doing a story on a certain team or a certain point of history in soccer, you want to get good sources. That's always important. And just making sure that you fact check and get all the details. You want people sending you messages like, hey man, like you messed this up. I know that's happened to me before, where it's embarrassing to have to go back and correct things, but you got to do what you got to do. So the writing process is, it's when it comes down to it, it's just getting it done and figuring out what the best way to tell the story is, and how you can attract the reader into not backing out after a couple of sentences.
I mean, I've recently won a writing competition, a history writing competition.
Oh, so, look at you!
Urban Pitch is going to be calling soon.
Well, okay. Do me a favor. Send me your resume. Send me some writing samples. We'll see what we can do.
I haven't been writing that much. Anyway, so football kits. Obviously, you have. I bet you have a good collection. But how much do you think football kits add to the culture of American soccer or American football?
Yeah. So I think that the coolest part about jerseys soccer jerseys in specific is just how I guess wearable they are. Like you can wear it out, you can work out in it, you can they're comfortable. They don't look. I mean, like a basketball jersey, it doesn't have sleeves. You can't really wear that in all. I don't know. Like for me, like going sleeveless, like it's just personal choice. Like I wouldn't do it. But I think when it comes to the soccer culture, you see a lot of U.S. based clubs and collectives now with amazing designs. I mean, Providence City FC is the first one that comes to mind. Just the amount of stuff that they've done and just the quality that they consistently come out with is incredible. And I think they're starting to get a lot of traction. Gorilla FC is another one that's kind of expanded overseas as well. I mean, just getting creative people in a space to where they can express themselves and put themselves out through a shirt. I mean, it's really cool what they're able to do. And I mean, even Icarus, who we partnered with for the jersey, I mean, some of the designs that they do are insane. So I think the more soccer culture kind of permeates into America, the more cool stuff you'll see. And you obviously worry about it becoming oversaturated, but until we get to that point, we don't have to. I don't think it's something that should be on a conscious concern for us. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think jerseys play a big role because I mean, you wear a jersey or you wear something that looks cool on the street, people ask like, oh, what is that? And then you can explain to them, and so it's kind of like a word of mouth thing that can it might not be the most effective way to spread soccer culture, but it's a way to do it. And I think we have a lot of great people around the country that are doing really cool things.
Yeah. Well, my little brother was wearing a United jersey. He's
Mhm.
like, at the time he's probably 8 or maybe 7. He's rocking the United jersey and had, big Chevrolet on it.
Yeah,
And somebody goes
yeah,
up to
yeah,
him like, Chevrolet, why are you wearing a Chevrolet shirt? He's like,
yeah,
nah.
yeah. So yeah, the sponsors are a big thing, right? Because I mean, you're essentially a walking billboard for whatever company is sponsoring, especially for clubs like Manchester United or Juventus, which have those gigantic sponsors that smack dab, So I think the Chevrolet and Man U partnership, it's hard to, they've had a couple of cool designs, but in terms of wearing it, it just looks like, the Manchester United crest is just so small compared to the Chevy shirt or Chevy logo that, it does look like a Chevrolet a t-shirt. So I think, I get why sponsors are important, obviously from a business perspective and what it does for the exposure to international markets for those companies. But that's not to say that it's all bad. I think there's some, like a PSV and Phillips who've they just ended their partnership a couple of years ago, but they had a stake in the team, I think, which is why they had such a long ongoing partnership. So I think if they can integrate the sponsor onto the shirt the right way and in a way that doesn't detract from the shirt itself, it's cool. But I'm not mad at sponsored less jerseys, and even like the old MLS jerseys from the 90s, which had the Galaxy logo across where the sponsor would be, or DC United or whatever club it was. I think those are really 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 cool because it shows it puts the team first and foremost, not the brand. So I mean, it is what it is. I think there's not much you could do. I think Roma a couple of years ago rolled out with a sponsorless jersey. A couple of Nisa teams have some sponsorless kits, but I mean, teams are going to want their money, and money is money. So it's going to be hard to outlaw sponsors on jerseys. So I think as long as they're done right and they can kind of integrate it to the shirt somehow, whether it's part of the design or it doesn't clash in the color scheme, there's a lot of ways you can get creative with it.
Well, sponsors. Well, have you heard about the Gazprom Schalke story? So Gazprom is a Russian-owned like
Mm-hmm.
government company, and
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to build a pipeline, a gas pipeline, because Gazprom's an oil company owned by
Yeah.
the I guess Russian government. They want to build a
Okay.
pipeline to Shalka, which is I guess the one of the leading energy coal I guess places
Okay.
in Europe. So they wanted to build a gas line to it. So they sponsored Schalke, and so I mean
I actually didn't know about that, but
yeah
that's interesting when you start getting into kind of the more political things of business, and we'll scratch your back if you scratch ours, and stuff like that. So um, yeah, I mean, it's definitely dubious, especially with like PSG and some of the other. I guess not PSG anymore, but some of the Emirates sponsored clubs. There's a lot of controversy with some of the ethics with the business that's going on with those companies, whether uh, there's corruption, or they're not paying their workers fair wages, and you don't want to advocate for a brand like that. And it just so happens that you're an Arsenal fan or whatever, and you're proudly wearing Fly Emirates on your shirt. So I can get why people are not going to want to buy a jersey with that sponsor on it, because they don't stand for the ideals that that brand stands for, or some of the practices that they do. So that's another kind of ethical issue with being a soccer fan, and football jerseys in general. So that's a whole nother thing that you can get into as well.
um so so how do you come up with the topics for your articles? You just like scroll IG? Do you?
Yeah. So I'm constantly, we have a team, we have a whole team of writers, and we do brainstorm session every week. And so, it's social media, what's going on in the news. Some of it is, if they're huge, we have a guy, Steve Gray, in the United Kingdom, who's a big Wycombe Wanderers fan, and they won promotion to League One, or the championship. They won promotion from League One to the championship a couple weeks ago. So he did a story about just kind of what it was like being a Wycombe fan over the years. I've had such a small club. Was able to kind of overcome a lot of adversity, and get into the second highest competition in Great Britain, or in England. So I think it's just there's so much topics that we can cover, just based on how we're focused as a site, that I'm always open to new pitches. Sometimes people like freelancers will come and pitch stories to me, and so it's all about just if it fits in with the site, and if it's an interesting story, then we'll run with it. So but yeah, a lot of it comes from social media, a lot of it comes from press releases, a lot of it comes from just what's going on on a day-to-day basis. So it's nice to be able to kind of do such a large amount of different stories.
So if there's one thing that you'd want to see, or like a company to come in to the soccer, I guess streetwear or soccer company brands, what would
Yeah,
it be?
that's a good question. So like, what kind of lifestyle brand, or anything
Or
like that?
like what kind of idea, like a soccer brand of, I know there's a soccer brand of like hip hop culture and soccer
Yeah,
culture,
yeah,
Killavilla,
yeah.
um, uh, like a, I guess like a fusion of a
Hmm.
different culture, or I
Yeah.
guess idea with soccer streetwear. What would it be?
Damn, you're putting me on the spot. Um, I think we've kind of seen it. I'm a big into sneakers. So I think anytime PSG's got a couple of their own Air Jordans. I think I just saw uh, their own Air Jordan 4 that's coming out soon. I don't know when. But and then you have Nike, who's supposedly running their kits this year, inspired by some of their iconic sneakers. So I think anytime you can get sneakers in soccer combined together, that's I think there's a lot of possibilities there. I think I saw someone on social media asking for like the old Ronaldo Mercurials with like the blue and silver and gold upper, and just take that upper and put a Air Max 97 bottom on it. I think that's an incredible idea. So I think it might be generic, or I mean not generic, but just generalized. But I think anytime we can get like some cool sneaker ideas that are inspired by soccer, it's only good things come out of that.
Okay. So what is one thing that American sports can teach European football? So I mean, like the big American sports like football, baseball,
Yeah.
basketball.
What's one thing that they could teach?
Because I mean,
Um,
people
the other
say
way, yeah. Go ahead.
people say that like European football can teach so much to American sports. So like, what
Yeah.
can American sports bring to European football?
I don't know, because I think it's like there's a lot of different ideals when it comes to American sports versus European sports. The the first, I mean, the most obvious one is just the way that the leagues are set up and the money. Um, so that's why MLS is a closed system, because the owners don't want to risk being demoted, and the owners kind of run the league. Whereas in Europe, it's not like that, and that's why you have promotion, relegation, and stuff. But the other way around, that's a good question. I think I like one thing that kind of, I don't know if it bothers me or upsets me, is that um, like you have like actual team names in the U.S. like LA Lakers, or New York Yankees, or whatever, like even the LA Galaxy. Whereas in the UK, or in Europe, I mean, it's just like Arsenal or Manchester United, or I think they have their own nicknames, right? I mean, you have Gunners, uh, and the Reds, and the Devils, and everything, and all that stuff. But I don't know, if you put me on the spot, I think that's one thing that I think could be implemented. Maybe it's like utilizing music in the arena a little bit more, kind of like how baseball has walk-up songs. I saw a couple months ago that the Prem was thinking of doing sub walkout songs and goal scoring celebration songs. So I think using music in the arena is a huge thing that I think American sports teams do pretty well, that I think European sports can do as well, can learn from. But I think, like you said, it might be the other way around, where US has more to learn from Europe than the other way around. But
So you said that they're gonna do goal celebration songs. They're gonna go like Fortnite on us.
I honestly, I don't know, because I don't know if they even if they've even implemented it. But yeah, so like basically, if Paul Pogba scores a goal, he has his own song that plays afterwards, so that he can do a little whatever celebration thing for. Or if someone gets brought on, they have like a walkout song, kind of like how a boxer has his, or a baseball player has their own, which I think is probably the coolest thing about baseball. Because I mean, let's face it, I played baseball. I love baseball my whole life, but there's nothing cool about it besides having that walk-up song and being able to kind of express yourself through that. But because they want to suppress any type of fun that you have. You show any type of enjoyment, whether it's running the bases or on the mound. It's like they're encouraged to shut you up, right? So that's a whole nother thing, though, that kind of getting into and starting to rave and rant about. But yeah, I think that's something that Euro teams can take from the US.
I mean, baseball players, MLB players are way more swaggy than MLS players. I'll tell you that.
I wouldn't disagree with you there. I think because it's so like the culture of baseball, it's like keep your head down, act like you've been there before. That when you do have a player who like just pimps a home run or makes a great play and kind of, it's a lot more understated than something like in the MLS. So I mean, that's not to take away anything from MLS players, but I mean, when your adrenaline and your energy is so high, it's hard. It's easy to be dorky, like, you lose all control of yourself. And you open the doors to be vulnerable and to be made fun of. But I mean, that's part of the culture of the game, right? And in baseball, it's so they put you down for stuff like that. So I'd honestly rather it be as open as MLS, but you take that negative of, like you score a goal and you're going to do a crazy celebration. You might look a little nerdy or whatever, but it makes up for just being able to express yourself. I'd rather have it that way than it is in baseball, where, you have these guys that are so, like not repressed, but like holding in their emotions at all times, that when they do show that little bit, it's like, oh my God, that was so cool. So I'd rather it be the other way.
All right. Is there any like soccer specific brand that you think deserves a little bit more credit than what's been given? Or like more clout, more
I
hype?
think, so obviously Umbro is, they've been around forever. They don't really get like the recognition that, Nike or Adidas gets. I think Nike sold them a couple of years ago, which kind of hurt their stock a little bit. But some of the jerseys that they've come out with, I think Phil Delves has a whole episode of what they've done in Brazil. It's awesome. So I think Umbro deserves a little bit more love. And then, this might seem kind of counterintuitive, but Puma, I think obviously Puma's huge. They're massive, but the jerseys that they've come out with this year, I think are on par or better than Nike and Adidas. So I think Adidas especially. I think Adidas is kind of taking a step back. But the Italy kits that they came out with, I think it was last year. They had like that peacock green. The Marseille jerseys, that whole set was great. They did a Valencia release, I think yesterday or the day before. That's just awesome. So like I think they're kind of taking into account a lot more details. They're being a lot more detail oriented, and you can tell kind of in the designs where it's not just a generic, solid white shirt with a sponsor and a crest on it anymore. They're starting to take a little bit more stock into how they're designing their jersey. So I think they deserve a little bit of more love for that.
Phil Daves, right?
I think it's Delves or I don't know.
Phil Delves?
It's spelled Delves. I don't know. I actually don't know how you pronounce it.
His podcast is pretty good though. He needs to come on the show. He's already been on Urban Pitch.
Yeah. You should hit him up. He's a great guy. He's a great dude. Obviously knows a lot about jerseys. He's real passionate about his stuff, and he's blowing up, man. He's getting gigs left and right. So he's really, really knowledgeable and loves his soccer shirts.
Yeah, for sure. So this might be the last little topic we have. So
okay.
How do you like about sports teams getting all political? Like European teams seem to get a little bit more political than United States. I guess every United States sports team. You've seen it with even some. There's a Christian USL, I think maybe one or two team that's like all Christian. I think in the third league of England, there's a all vegan team. So
yeah.
Do you think that's good, or do you think that sports should be separate from politics and stuff like that?
Yeah, so that's obviously a tricky topic. I think the players should have the freedom to express themselves. Freedom of expression is a basic right, and having players, whether it's taking a knee, wearing a jersey, or a protest celebration in protest of We've seen it with police brutality here in the U.S., racism across the world. I think there's a lot of people who think that a sport should be an escape from the trials and tribulations of daily life. But I mean, I think when you have that spotlight and when you have the audience that some of these athletes do, that that comes with responsibility, right? And gone are the days of being able to just kind of keep your mouth shut and go about your business day to day, because people, whether you like it or not, you're being looked at as a role model. And I think now with social media and with just the growth of sport, and I mean, almost everyone is a sports fan now. So everyone knows who LeBron James is. Everyone knows who, Ronaldo and Messi are. So the onus is on the players to kind of take that stance and make that stand. And I think, but at the same time, you want there to be kind of an open discussion, and you don't want it to be like, oh, this guy isn't saying anything, he must be against it. I think you should have the choice to be silent and to not maybe be as expressive as some of these other people are. But at the same time, when you're pressed about it, you have to be able to back yourself up. Right? I'm being silent because blah blah blah. It's not just because I'm a racist or I approve of police brutality. So I think that especially now with everything just being so convergent and the 24/7 spotlight of athletes as stars, they deserve. I mean, they should be able to speak on these issues and topics without being silenced by whether it's a team owner. I think the WNBA, I think it was the Chicago WNBA. I think it was them, but WNBA players have been, take a look at what Maya Moore has done over the years. They've been speaking out against, issues that matter to them. And when you have that platform and you have that a spotlight on you, there's a responsibility to do that. So, I'm all for player empowerment. I'm all for, people speaking out. But that doesn't mean that you have to do it, so just as long as the everything is open for discussion and it's not like one guy speaks out his mind that happens to be against the majority, he gets, blacklisted and thrown out of the league and nobody wants him. So, it just needs to be done in a way where everyone can benefit and not gang up on each other when it comes to politics, because it's obviously a deeply personal thing to speak about. So as long as you're doing it and you're speaking your mind and you're not being you're being open-minded about things, go for it and do it. That's just my humble opinion.
So also something like with clubs like Chivas, the Mexican team, and Liga MX,
Mm-hmm.
they only let Mexican players of I guess you have to you can't play there's a
You have to
player,
be Mexican born or of Mexican heritage to be on the team, right? Yeah.
Like one player, he had to give up playing for the national team so he could play on Chivas USA, and that's something I don't really like because it seems it's almost like a cult-like kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. I think, and it hurts the team more than it helps them when you only want to be a team of whatever Mexican born or Mexican heritage, or I think I understand, you want to maintain a culture and a tradition, and your team, I mean, that's one of the more prominent Liga MX teams. But at the same time, that hurts you more than it helps you. And at a certain point, you have to realize, the game has gone global. It's not like, years past where most domestic stars play in the domestic league. So there's a good chance that you're going to get, whether it's someone from South America, someone from Europe, someone from Asia, come and be able to help your team win championships, which is, which should be the overall goal for every team, which may or may not be. But I think when you get into a situation where a team becomes authoritarian to that point, it's difficult. I think you mentioned there's an all vegan team. I think I'm trying to think of the name.
It's
We
Green
did a story.
Forest.
Yeah,
It's
Green Forest Rovers, right?
Yeah.
Green Forest Rovers, right? Yeah. So they're vegan in their team sense. They're not forcing their players to go vegan, but a lot of them have switched because they love how it makes them feel. So I think when it's done like that, that's great. Your team has an identity. They're trying to put it forth on the players, but they're not forcing them to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the right way to do it. But when you're forcing a team to only sign, certain players of certain heritage, that gets a little dicey, in my opinion. But I mean, it's their prerogative to do that, and in the long run, it's going to hurt them more than it's going to help them. So, they're obviously private businesses and entities that they can do whatever they want. But if I'm running them, I might change things up a little bit.
All right. So that's all the questions I have for you. Thank you for coming on the show. Everybody go read some of his articles at Urban Pitch, follow him on Instagram. Also, for our channel as well, like us, subscribe, go watch us on YouTube, and then go watch us on Spotify again. Also, check out me and my friend's podcast. Thank you guys for watching. Have a nice day, I guess.